In the darkest shadows of history, there are stories that haunt the human soul, horrifying mysteries, unspeakable crimes, and terrors so chilling that even the bravest of hearts tremble. And one of these tales is that of Peter Stumpp, the infamous werewolf of Bedburg, Germany. For over 2 decades, mysterious deaths, brutal corpses, and rumors of a giant wolf stalking its prey spread fear throughout a quiet village. But what really happened? Was it a monstrous wolf terrorizing the land? Or a man who made a pact with the devil, trading his soul for dark, unearthly powers? Follow the chilling tale of the Werewolf of Bedburg, where the line between man and monster blurs, and evil doesn't just come from the darkness, but from the very people we trust. Welcome to a terrifying story you won't want to miss. In the 16th century, in the peaceful village of Bedburg, Germany, a chilling tale cast a shadow of fear over the entire region for decades. At the heart of the case was Peter Stumpp, a seemingly ordinary farmer who was accused of being behind a series of brutal murders that spanned 25 years. Villagers believed that Stumpp had made a pact with the devil, granting him the ability to transform into a bloodthirsty wolf whenever he wished. In this monstrous form, he was said to have slaughtered not only livestock, but also men, women, and children. Because of these gruesome crimes, the people began to call him the Werewolf of Bedburg. Peter Stumpp, born around 1530 in the village of Bedburg, Germany, was once regarded as a prosperous farmer and a respected member of his community. He owned a large farm and considerable wealth, earning the admiration of villagers for his pious lifestyle and elevated social standing. Outwardly, Stumpp showed no signs of abnormality. He was a father, a landowner, and a model citizen of his time. Yet behind this virtuous facade lay a horrific truth that few could have imagined. According to his confession, Stumpp claimed that at the age of 20, he entered into a pact with the devil, a fateful decision that would transform him from an ordinary man into a symbol of terror and evil. As part of this agreement, Satan was said to have gifted Stumpp a magical belt, an enchanted object that allowed him to take the form of a massive, powerful, and savage wolf, more fearsome than anything in human imagination. When wearing this belt, Stumpp asserted that he could move with terrifying speed, possessed claws and razor-sharp fangs, and had no sense of fear or mercy. He used this wolf form to carry out a series of gruesome killings over more than 2 decades, all while concealing his true identity. The belt's power not only allowed him to evade capture, but also led villagers to believe they were being hunted by a real supernatural creature, a monster from the depths of hell. Making a pact with the devil, according to the beliefs of the time, was an unredeemable act, a complete surrender of the soul to darkness in exchange for powers beyond human limitation. Stumpp's story became a chilling testament to the deep-rooted fear of evil hiding beneath ordinary appearances, and it reflected the religious fervor and widespread superstition that permeated medieval European society. The crimes of Peter Stumpp not only shocked the community of his time, but also continue to horrify future generations due to their brutality, grotesqueness, and unimaginable nature. Right now, let's listen to Sam, a friend of mine, as he recounts the inhuman atrocities committed by Peter Stumpp.
For over 25 years, Stumpp murdered and raped numerous innocent women and children. Among his victims were at least 13 young girls and 2 pregnant women. Even more cruelly, he confessed to disemboweling these pregnant women to extract and devour their fetuses. Not stopping at humans, Stumpp also attacked livestock in the area when he could not find victims to satisfy his bloodlust. He is said to have killed and eaten live animals from sheep to cattle, like a true predatory beast. These acts heightened the villagers' fear, leading them to believe a supernatural creature was lurking among them, wreaking havoc on crops and daily life. His sins did not end there. One of the most horrifying accusations was that Stumpp engaged in incestuous relationships with his own daughter, Sybil, and his sister. From his relationship with his daughter, he even fathered a childa product of abhorrence and taboo. This tale of incest led people to believe that Stumpp was not only possessed by demons, but had also completely lost his conscience and basic moral boundaries. The pinnacle of his brutality was the murder of his own son. In his confession, Stumpp admitted to luring his son to a secluded place, killing him, and cracking open his skull to eat his brain like a deranged maniac. This act, taking the life of his own flesh and blood, not only proved his complete loss of control, but also made the folkloric image of the werewolf more haunting and real than ever before.
For 25 years, the villagers of Bedburg lived in constant fear of a mysterious creature that brought death and destruction in its wake. A series of horrifying murders took place. Children vanished, women were brutally slaughtered, and livestock were found savagely torn apart under bizarre circumstances. Despite organizing multiple hunts with hounds, armed men, and even so-called sorcerers, no one could capture a single wolf. It seemed as though the beast would appear out of nowhere, leave behind blood and terror, then vanish without a trace. A turning point came in 1589, when a group of hunters, in pursuit of a vicious wolf, stumbled upon something strange. Just as the wolf suddenly disappeared into the forest, Peter Stumpp, a familiar local farmer, appeared at the exact same spot. This uncanny coincidence immediately raised suspicion, prompting the hunters to report the event to the authorities. Stumpp was arrested and taken into custody for questioning. Under the brutal torture methods common during the Middle Ages, where confessions were regarded as irrefutable evidence, Stumpp confessed to a long list of horrifying crimes. He admitted to being a werewolf, having murdered, raped, and eaten numerous victims over the years. According to official records, at least 16 of his victims were identified, with many others left unnamed due to their bodies being mutilated beyond recognition or never found at all. In his chilling confession, Stumpp described in detail the transformation process, his methods of hunting, and the monstrous acts he committed while in the form of a beast. On October 31st, 1589, fittingly, the night of Halloween, Peter Stumpp was brought to public execution in front of a large crowd. The sentence handed down to him was one of the most brutal punishments of that era. He was first tied to a breaking wheel, where red-hot iron pincers were used to shatter the bones in his arms and legs. Then he was beheaded, and finally his body was burned completely. But the punishment did not end with death. To serve as a warning to others, Stumpp's severed head was mounted atop a tall pike. Beside it stood a wooden effigy of a wolf, symbolizing the demonic form he was believed to have taken. This display was a declaration by the authorities of their firm stance against witchcraft and evil, and also a means of instilling deeper fear in the hearts of the villagers. The trial and execution of Peter Stumpp would go on to become one of the most infamous examples of how superstition, fear, and cruelty were deeply interwoven in the justice system of the medieval era. The case of Peter Stumpp not only shocked Germany in the late 16th century, but also quickly spread across Europe, thanks to the widespread use of printed pamphlets and broadsheets at the time. It became one of the most infamous and hotly debated werewolf trials ever recorded, sparking discussions that would last for generations. Detailed accounts of the case were published in 1590, just 1 year after Stumpp's execution. The work was translated into English by George Boers, and today only 2 rare copies are known to exist, one housed at the British Museum and the other at the Lambeth Palace Library. This document vividly describes the entire trial process, Stumpp's confession, the gruesome crimes he was accused of, and the horrific punishment he ultimately endured. Written in a chillingly dramatic and moralistic tone, the pamphlet was not only intended as a record of events, but also served as a cautionary tale to the public, an attempt to instill fear of witchcraft and the lurking presence of the devil in everyday life. However, Stumpp's confession has long been a subject of controversy. Many question its authenticity, suggesting it may have been extracted under severe torture, a common and accepted practice during that time. Furthermore, there is no clear physical evidence to support Stumpp's claims. Most notably, the enchanted belt, he said, was given to him by the devil to transform into a wolf. Despite the lack of tangible proof, the detailed and eerie nature of Stumpp's case, as well as its parallels with other werewolf trials, particularly that of Jean Grenier in France, have led scholars and historians to explore the possibility that such trials were shaped as much by myth, fear, and superstition as by fact. These doubts have cast a lasting shadow over the case, turning it into a prime example of how hysteria, folklore, and brutal justice intertwined during the darker chapters of European history. Germany in the late 16th century was a land mired in turmoil and upheaval. Deeply divided by religious conflict between Catholics and Protestants, the country was entrenched in social and political tensions. On top of that, the devastating aftermath of the Black Plague and a series of prolonged wars plunged the population into hardship, fear, and chronic instability. Amid such conditions, belief in supernatural forces, especially demons and witches, flourished, becoming a common explanation for any calamity that could not otherwise be understood. Werewolves, in the folklore of the time, were not merely savage beasts, but were believed to be direct servants of the devil. Those accused of being werewolves were often associated with witchcraft and brought before courts in so-called witch trials, where superstition and torture overshadowed reason and justice. It was in this atmosphere of fear and fanaticism that the story of Peter Stumpp ignited a wave of collective dread, becoming a vivid symbol of evil and moral decay during one of the darkest periods in European history. To this day, the case of Peter Stumpp remains a subject of intense debate, with various theories surrounding the truth behind his chilling confessions and the terrifying trial of 1589. Scholars, historians, and occult researchers alike have sought to uncover whether Stumpp was truly a monstrous creature, a deranged murderer, or merely a victim of an age consumed by superstition. From a political and religious standpoint, some suggest that Stumpp's trial may have served as a symbolic tool used for political or religious ends. At the time, the Bedburg region was caught in the midst of the Catholic-Protestant conflict. As a Protestant living in a Catholic-controlled area, Stumpp may have been turned into a scapegoat, a cautionary example aimed at silencing dissent. Furthermore, the fact that his confessions were extracted under severe torture, a common practice of the era, casts serious doubt on their authenticity. Many question whether his admissions reflected the truth or were simply the desperate words of a man gripped by excruciating fear and agony. Another theory involves Stumpp's mental health. Some modern psychologists have proposed that he may have suffered from disorders such as paranoia, schizophrenia, or even clinical lycanthropy, a rare psychiatric condition in which a person believes they can transform into an animal. If this was the case, Stumpp might have genuinely believed he was a wolf, acting out in ways that mirrored this delusion. Others argue that Stumpp was, in fact, a depraved serial killer whose grotesque and extreme behavior defied the societal understanding of crime at the time. In trying to comprehend the horror of his alleged acts, people may have turned to supernatural explanations as a means to rationalize their fear and revulsion. There is also a theory that Stumpp was entirely innocent, a victim of baseless accusations, and that the real perpetrators of the murders were wild wolves, a plausible possibility in the remote forested region of Bedburg. And finally, some still cling to the supernatural interpretation that Stumpp truly was a werewolf, and that the legends reflect the existence of a terrifying entity that once walked the earth, even if no concrete evidence has ever surfaced to confirm it. The story of Peter Stumpp stands as one of the most infamous werewolf cases in recorded history, embodying the fears and beliefs in witchcraft and demonic forces that permeated medieval society. His gruesome confessions and the crimes he was accused of committing became deeply rooted in the folklore and superstition of the time. Stumpp, known as the Werewolf of Bedburg, evolved into a symbol of cruelty and mystery, and his tale rapidly spread across Europe, etched into the collective memory of its people. The cultural legacy of his case is not just one of horror legend. It also raises profound questions about human nature, the belief in magic, and the ways in which society attempts to understand monstrous acts. In the medieval world, where belief in the supernatural and the devil ran strong, crimes like those attributed to Stumpp were easily linked to otherworldly forces. His story reflects humanity's confrontation with brutality and the inexplicable, while also highlighting the potent mixture of superstition and justice used to make sense of evil in a time of darkness.